मंत्रमूलम गुरुर्वाक्यम मोक्षमूलम गुरु कृपा। ओम कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नंदगोपकुमाराय गोविंदाय नमो नमः। सद्गुरु भगवान की जय, सच्चिदानंद भगवान की जय, कृष्ण भगवान की जय, गीता महारानी की जय। हरि ओम। We are discussing Bhagavad Gita, third chapter, which deals with karma yoga, how to perform actions. And in that yesterday we saw the ninth श्लोका। यज्ञार्थात् कर्मणोऽन्यत्र लोकोऽयं कर्मबन्धनः तदर्थं कर्म कौन्तेय मुक्तसंगः समाचरः। We have discussed two paths given by the Vedas. One is doing actions with the expectation of the result of the actions and performing rituals and getting merits out of which one goes to the subtler worlds which we call heaven, where one enjoys for pretty long time there, and then of course it ends one day or other, and then he has to come back from that level of existence, and then he has to work again, just like a person earning plenty of money and enjoying his life in some 5-star hotels, and when the money is exhausted, he has to come back home and earn still more money to enjoy. Similarly, one does meritorious deeds and gets its result as enjoying a life in heaven for a pretty long time, and then of course he has to come back to this earthly plane to work again and again, and that's how one is always in the cycle of birth and death and pleasure and pain. This world is nothing but the pairs of opposites, that is good and bad, pain and pleasure, everything, dualistic world. This is how the whole world is under the law of relativity, and he cannot get out of it. The other way is given by the Vedas. While doing all the actions, one who has no ego of doership, and he acts all the actions at present without any attachment, without any expectation of its results, having no concern with the actions, but yet performing the actions, performing the duties well, he never gets entangled with this cycle of birth and death, and he gets freed from it. How? When he has no attachment for the results, then his mind and senses are under control. They are not restless. They are steadied. A desireless person will have a calm and quiet mind. And then with that pure intellect, one-pointed intellect, he can enter into meditation, samadhi, and then he is one with the absolute truth, which is the existence absolute, knowledge absolute, and the bliss absolute, which is eternal, uninterrupted life. So one can lead this or that according to his choice. Both the ways are given by the Vedas. So we were discussing how one can perform sacrifice. Sacrifice means a medium by which we keep our relationship with everyone. Connectivity, the connecting rod, or yajna is just as yoga works as a bridge to unite two ends. The individual being gets union with the absolute, that is by the help of yoga. Yoga is taken as a bridge, connecting bridge. Similarly, this yajna also, yajna means sacrifice, and sacrifice means renunciation also. You have to renounce everything. What you have to renounce? Of course, in the very beginning, as I, an identity which is identical with the body, the physical body, and body has some senses, 5 senses of actions and 5 senses of knowledge. So in this way, body with 10 senses, with a prana, the vital energy, and fourfold mind, subconscious mind, intellect, the decisive power, this is part of the mental function. Mental function means the flow of thoughts, and it is grosser than the intellect. The same thoughts, when are subtle and able to decide among the two thoughts what is what, that part of the mind is known as the intellect, and that is subtler than the mind, and because it is subtler, so it is also more powerful. And ego is a changing identity which starts from the subconscious mind and identifies itself with it, and it identifies with everything, whatever we have in our personality. It becomes I is intellect, I is mind, I is all the senses, and I is also the body, I is also the prana. So it goes on changing. So this is dangerous ego. This ego becoming one with all these identities, it performs all the actions as the doer. So it gets attachment with all these and with the objects of senses also. So because of this ego, we are entangled in this worldly life in a cycle. It goes on revolving endlessly, and we are in the circle of birth and death. There is no freedom from it. So if the ego somehow or other is renounced, that means under control or destroyed by some technique, and the attachment or the identity with all these body, prana, senses, mind, intellect and subconscious mind, all these can be renounced. The attachment with this, the identity with this, if renounced, that is called real sacrifice. Then what remains? Your witnessing identity remains in the end, which witnesses all these, and he is not the doer. Thereby the ego has no work here. And there is no attachment, there is no entanglement, there is no involvement in all these actions. Though the senses, body, mind, prana, they go on working by the force of the nature. They will be working just as once the generator is manually on, and if there is fuel in it, it will go on, it will go on, it will not stop. It goes on by itself because the energy is there. So you need not go and take part in it or to be entangled in its working. It will go on. This is called nature. Similarly, there are three qualities: sattva, rajas, tamas. These three basic qualities of the nature, when they are in a balanced state, no action can be done. When they are imbalanced, that is called the nature, and then the imbalanced state means action starts. So thereby the nature does all the action by the help of these three qualities, and the work goes on. What is the work? Work is one becoming many. One seed becomes innumerable seeds. It goes on transforming from one state to the other in the course of time, place and situations, conditions, and it goes on transforming, and it becomes one day a tree, and it yields so many seeds, and those seeds multiply, goes on multiplying. This is the the law of nature. This is the work of the nature. One becomes many all the time. And this becoming many, it is within one. The one appears to be many within the one. That is to be understood. One becomes many within the one, not outside the one. Just as if I am the body, I am one body. Let us take for granted, I am the body. The ego says, I am the body. Okay, body is one or many? It is one only, but it holds many within it. Body cannot be seen as one in the body. We can see only the parts of the body, either the hands or legs or nose or eyes, whatever you see. It is part of body, it is not the whole body. Whole totality cannot be seen as one. It is seen in the many form. This is how one becomes many within the one. Body remains body, one, all the time, but it has manyness within it. In this way, the whole world is ever growing, ever growing. Grows where? When we say one is spreading or growing or it is expanding, we naturally bring the idea of space, time and conditions. But here there is no need of time, space and conditions. It is within itself. That means it grows in a cycle. So world is nothing but cycle. It is not growing outside. So in this way, one becomes many. And this is the work of the nature. This is how nature performs its actions. That means ever restlessness. And this happens by the help of three qualities: Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. Sattva we have seen. Sattva is nothing but purity and oneness and knowledge, and Rajas is restlessness, actions, and Tamas is dullness or inertia. In these three qualities, when they keep in a balanced state, the world is not to be seen. When it is imbalanced, then only the world is seen. And this is the work of nature. This is called nature. And now, we have to sacrifice this ego and with that attachment with all these many which belongs to one. I, one, and I have many. So I and my, these two should be renounced. Then ego has no work. So you become the remnant. You become the witness. You are the onlooker. You are sitting in the audience, and two parties are playing the game. Two teams are playing the game. You are just onlooker. So in this way, you are never concerned. And this is how you can get out of this cycle, eternal cycle of the world. And then you can have the steadiness of your identity, and that leads to the absolute truth. That is the eternal life. These two ways are given by the Vedas, and some, according to their choice, some choose the path of action and some choose the path of renunciation. We have seen the path of wisdom, renunciation, unattachment before, and now Lord Krishna gives us yajñarthat karmanyo nyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sangaha samachara. The world is bound by actions other than those performed for the sake of sacrifice. Do thou therefore, O son of Kunti, Arjuna, perform action for that sake, for sacrifice alone, free from attachment. He is advising Arjuna to do all these actions for the sacrifice sake, not for having any result of it. Yajna means sacrifice or religious rite or any unselfish action done with a pure motive. It means also Ishvara, the God. The Taittiriya Samhita says, Yajna verily is Vishnu, Lord Vishnu himself, Yajna Purush. Yajna Purush is known as the Lord Vishnu. Vishnu means literally the all-pervading self, eternal all-pervading self, Vishnu. If anyone does actions for the sake of the Lord, he is not bound. His heart is purified by performing actions for the sake of the Lord. Where this spirit of unselfishness does not govern the action, it will bind one to sansara, however good or glorious it may be. So now, how to do actions for God's sake? If you have no attachment or right over the claim over the result of your actions, then you do the actions for some other sake. Who is that? It is the all-governing God. It is just like a slave works for his master. We have seen Bandhua Mazdur, the slaves, they are purchased for some time with some agreements. For some time they are purchased. So they work in the fields of the landlord for the landlord's sake. They get their daily wages only, or whatever is agreed in the agreement, they get that, not more, not less. And they are bound to work in the field for the landlord's sake, they get nothing out of the yield of the crop. Whatever the landlord gets, they have no claim over it. Similarly, just as a slave to your lord, you have to work. So is it called independency or dependency? In one way you are slave to your God, isn't it? So how do you take it? Why don't you ask this question? When you have no freedom, so are you not a slave? So you are slave to your God, whosoever, however he is, may be. You are slave to him, isn't it? Okay, let us see. Is it good to be a slave? Where is your independence then? You have lost your independence. So is it freedom or it is slavery? What does Lord Krishna teach to Arjuna? To become a slave? Now, coming to our practical life, how do you feel? Are you a slave or a free person? Come on, speak the truth. How do you feel?
I feel bound by the three gunas.
How do you feel? Nothing you feel. I feel nothing. You are beyond all this. How do you feel?
I feel like I used to be a slave and a beggar, and now
Now you are the master.
No. Moving towards it.
See, the analytical situation of our being. Nobody is free from the desires. Somehow or other we have desires, and we are ever engaged in fulfilling our desires. Can we deny this? This is the practical daily life truth. Who can deny this? Every moment we have desires. And if you have desires, and ever you are engaged in fulfilling your desires, are you not a slave to your desires? Where is your independency? You are a slave, you have to accept it. Unknown slave. You don't know that you are a slave. You have already sold yourself to your desires unknowingly. Who can deny this? किसके जीव में हड्डी है, बोल देगा कि मैं नौकर नहीं हूँ. We have some saying, जीव में हड्डी means who has got this bone in the tongue that he can say this bravely. I am not a slave. This is the analytical truth. Truth. Nobody can live a second without a desire, and we are ever engaged. Our whole life is wasted, as it were, just to fulfill our desires only. Nothing else we do. What we get, what we don't get, that is different. but this is the reality. So it is better to be a slave of the Almighty. Why should you be a slave to a beggar? And why not to be a slave of the king? Isn't it? That's how in all our yogic paths, everywhere, the surrender is the prescription in the end. If you cannot do anything, surrender. Raise your hands. Yes.
So, Swamiji, logically in relativity, so if we do an action like to satisfy a desire, an action is performed, like we desire something, so we perform an action in relativity. But in the sacrifice, it's the meaning is something which is a loss or something you have to give up. So an action is performed to have a loss and to give up something in relativity.
You have lost the expectation. That is all. You have lost, that is called sacrifice. You have no idea of any expectation of the result of your actions. Just as a slave works in the field for the sake of the landlord, not for him. He has no expectation. He works for work's sake, without any expectation. Because he is a slave, only then he can work like that, or else he will become a partner. Don't be a partner. My parents, don't be a partner now. Be a slave. Better to be a slave, because a slave have no anxiety, no worries, no problems. If the crop is wasted or there is a bumper crop, he is never concerned, because he doesn't expect anything. So he has got no pain, no pleasure. He is beyond the pairs of opposites. In this way he goes beyond this cycle of pairs of opposites. Pain and pleasure, birth and death, all this goes on in a cycle. After pain, there is pleasure. After pleasure, there is pain. In this way, it goes on a cycle. So this is called world. So you have renounced it. That is your loss. When you lose everything, you get everything. That is the formula. When you lose everything, then you get everything. There is nothing in the pot means it is not vacant. It is full with sky. It cannot be emptied. Emptiness means it is purity, it is oneness, and there is no question of the two. Empty means one. That is the absolute purity, oneness. Adulteration means 2, 3, 4, mixture. The world is nothing but a mixture. Mixture of 5 elements: the sky, the air, fire, water and earth. In different ways we have discussed it many times, how this world is a composition of 5 elements with different ratios, that's all. And in this way, when you have renounced all these, there is no world, then what is there? If there is no world, what is that emptiness then? That is the presence absolute. You cannot deny the presence. So it is all full, all completeness. We have to understand what is called purity or emptiness or solidity. Water is solid or what? How do you take it? If pure water, it is solid as well as pure, as well as one only. One means pure. Adulteration means mixture, 2 or 3. Pure means, pure milk means there is nothing other than the milk only. So it is oneness. Purity means oneness. So purity of mind means one thought only. Purity of anything, it is known as oneness, that is no mixture. In this way, if it is empty, empty means nothing can be there, so one alone is there, that is absolute existence. Existence cannot be denied. If you say emptiness is there, that is existence. That emptiness is nothing but existence. In this way, the existence absolute and the awareness of existence by the existence is also one and the same. It is called knowledge absolute, and the satisfaction by being the complete one, that is called the absolute bliss, satisfaction. So that is absolute knowledge, absolute bliss, absolute existence, which cannot be denied by any condition, any way. So that is called the absolute purity. When you renounce all these manys, then that oneness remains in the end. That is, you have got everything. When you renounce everything, you get everything. This is how one has to understand, and we shall talk on our yajna, sacrifice. This is a very big subject itself. Yajna, sacrifice, is taken in many ways by different, many seers from different angles. Today we shall discuss little, and tomorrow we shall take some days, every day, till we complete the meaning of sacrifice. You see, when we see this world is a composition of 5 elements, basic elements. Scientifically, elements are different. The basic elements, they are pure, one cheese, one object. There is no mixture of it. That means if we go to scientific analysis, the atoms of same object will be found in that. That is called element. Only one type of element, or atoms. When it is mixed, it is a compound object. Or the elements are of one type of atoms, made up of one type of atoms. That is called element. In this way, perhaps nowadays they are going on finding some elements, more than 150 or something elements are there. But according to our spiritual outlook, we have 5 basic elements, gross elements, by composing which we have all these names and forms of the creation, visible world. So they are the sky, the ether. Sky is not empty, it is full. And when the sky moves about, it is called air. When the air moves about in the action, in the motion, then there is naturally fire because of friction. And fire is nothing but water, oxygen and hydrogen, they are water only. And when fire liquefies, then it is called water. And when water solidifies, it is called earth. So in this way, these 5 gross basic elements constitute this creation, visible world with names and forms only. And in this world, if it is made up of 5 elements, sky, air and fire and water and earth, the fire comes in the middle, isn't it? So the fire has a quality. What is that? It can make, I see fire is in the middle. So air and the sky, they are subtler than fire. Is air, subtler than air is the sky. So more subtler means more expanded, more space it occupies, more voluminous, and that's how the sky is limitless. And when there is movement, it is known as sound, or when we touch it, it is known as feel it, then it is known as the air. So they are subtler than the fire, and grosser than the fire is water and the earth. The fire in the middle, it has got a quality to make the subtle gross and gross into subtle. That's how it is in the middle. The water can be made into subtle vapor and highly evaporated. It can be also divided into oxygen and hydrogen. It can be separated by the fire only. It can become subtle. Similar the earth also. And it can make the subtle into gross. Air, sky, it can be made gross by the fire only. So the fire is taken as the mediocre. We have seen the creation, whether it is subtler creation or grosser, there are subtler realms of existence and grosser realms also. So, in both way, the fire is in between. When the grosser beings want to communicate with the subtler beings, the fire becomes the mediocre. So, fire becomes the sacrificial mediator. So, fire is taken as sacrifice. It takes the gross objects from one gross beings and it makes it subtle and supplies it to the subtler beings, and in the return whatever the subtler beings give, then that becomes gross by the fire only, and it is available to the grosser beings. See, by the fire only, by the heat only, the water becomes cloud and it rains, and all the vegetable world grows, and the grosser beings, the human beings, animals or birds or all these beings, they get their energy as food from all these plant lives, and they survive. And then whatever they give in return to the subtler beings, the fire takes it. Whatever you put into fire, it becomes subtler, it evaporates, and it becomes subtler, and it is available to the subtler beings. So we have an outlook. Everywhere there are different beings. Beings means formation of identities. When the unlimited is limited by some names or forms, they are called beings. They have become, so they are beings. So in the subtler world, there are so many subtler governing bodies which control this gross world also as well as the subtle world also. For example, just as we have a government, we have a country, democratic country, or let it be, क्या कहते हैं उसको, communist country, whatever it may be. One government is there, everywhere there is a governing body. Have you seen the governing body? But it is there, you cannot deny. It is present all over the country in every way. That's how the democracy is told us, by the people, for the people, in the people, from the people, for the people. It is present everywhere. Now election was going on. Everybody has taken part in the government. So everybody, every citizen is known as the governing body. They choose the government. So the government is there present. It is called the subtler part of the gross government. Gross government we see in the personalities. Some heads, they govern some aspect of the whole society, say monetary section, ruling section. Nyayapalika means you see, uh, justice section and governing section, and in governing section uh, the uh, the economic and the other different heads are there. So many different heads are there. Some persons are given charge to govern some aspects of the government. In this way, we can see the gross government in persons. They are changeable. Government is not changeable. The persons may change. That post is not changeable. So one person, that seat is confirmed. But one person sits on the seat for some time, for some purpose. He is given charge of some duties. He has to perform his duties. In the same way, in our creation, we have different realms of the government, whole government of the creation. Some ruler will be there, a controller. We call it God. And call it as you like. Call it dog, I don't have any objection. Some name we have to give. But that existence of that entity we cannot deny, the controlling body. And under his directions, there will be different subordinate bodies which will help them. So some are there in the subtler realms who control and govern the subtler aspects of the creation of the nature. Say we have water department, water conservation, water supply, and taking the tax, different department. So in this way, the forest department is there, or the economic department is there, the police department is there to control the people who do something wrong. They should be controlled, or harmony will be lost. Law and order should be maintained to have a harmony in the society. So for that, some department will be there. In that way, in the subtle government also, there are different parts. Water department is given to Lord Indra, a subtle controller who controls this aspect of the nature, who controls everything on water. And the preserver is the Varuna, water preserver. It will be supplied according to the hints and direction of Indra, this controller of it. So in this way, there are subtle aspects of the nature which is controlled by different controllers. They are called gods, different gods. And they always try to keep up balance in the gross and subtle world, creation. That's how they are given charge of all those aspects. And gross department also are there seen, say vegetable world, the gross, see, the gross substratum to hold everything, all the subtler worlds. So that is called earth. And water also is there. So in this way, the fire is the mediator who keeps the connectivity among the subtler beings and the grosser beings. Generally, when the human beings they want something, they are dependent on the subtler beings. So they have to give something and take something. This is how the cooperation and connectivity is to be there all the time. So one becomes happy by giving something and taking something. This is the law of nature. This is a cooperative society. One is dependent on the other. One is not free here. For everything we depend upon others. Our existence of this gross identity is totally dependent on everything on this universe. For air, water, fire, everything we depend upon others. Without these we cannot sustain our identity, gross identity as a being. So we have to give something and take something. This is called the relative world. Relative transaction, you have to give something and take something. This is how we live our worldly lives. So sacrifice is a must. That becomes the connective rod between the two. That is called sacrifice. You have to give something and then you get something. Then you can live a successful, happy life. If you don't give, you don't get, then your identity is in danger. You cannot survive. So in this way, today this much, tomorrow we shall discuss more on this sacrifice. How from different angles these different great seers have seen it and given us the clues of the nature, how to live a successful, happy life, how we can get our target. Target is eternal happiness. It is not interrupted happiness. So tomorrow we shall see anyhow. Hari Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sadguru Bhagavan ki jai. Krishna Bhagavan ki jai. Satchidananda Bhagavan ki jai. Gita Mata ki jai.